Oh gosh, Ben Shapiro makes things so easy because he is such a pathetic, sad joke. I mean, all I can say is you need to watch this video. It's a couple of minutes, but I need to share this video with you. He was on the Fox News on July 28th talking about talking about things like censorship and being woke, that sort of thing. And well, let me just if you bear with me, go ahead. I'll play this and I'm going to comment on it. Okay.
Two companies taking heat after bowing to the left. Israel launching a pressure campaign against Ben and Jerry's over its decision to boycott Israeli settlements in the West Bank, while a Coca-Cola executive refused to condemn China's human rights abuses during a heated Senate hearing on Tuesday. Ben Shapiro is author of the new book, The Authoritarian Moment, and host of the Ben Shapiro Show on the Daily Wire, which gets me back and forth as I walk to work and listen to you every day. Ben, what do you think about this Ben and Jerry situation? I know that in theory, you've been against boycotts, but this time, what do you think?
The fact is that I was against boycotts maybe 10 years ago, and now because the left keeps renormalizing all of these institutions, turning all of these corporations into basically weapons of the woke, this means that everybody who doesn't want to see that happen, if you want to see corporations go back to neutral, we're going to have to establish some form of mutually assured destruction here, where we say, listen, you guys go woke, you go broke, and if you want to go back to neutral, then we will start patronizing your product again. But the problem is that there's a vast asymmetry in which the left decides that they are going to weaponize corporations against people who disagree. And then the right says, well, we're against boycotts. Well, that sort of asymmetry ends with the renormalization of every one of these corporations in favor of the left, and that has to stop, obviously.
What do you think will happen in the end on this Ben and Jerry's front?
It seems like Unilever has no incentive to continue broader boycott of Israel. I think that states are going to start using anti-discrimination laws to crack down on Ben and Jerry's. And for folks who don't understand that, states do have the wherewithal to crack down on corporations that violate, for example, anti-discrimination laws with regard to racism. That's also true for anti-Semitism. That is why Ben and Jerry's is running afoul of the law in certain states. I think that Ben and Jerry's is unlikely to back down, but frankly, I think that Israel doesn't need Ben and Jerry's ice cream. I think there are plenty of other brands they can use.
There's plenty. That's right. Also,
Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, do-see. Okay, I want to talk about this. Okay, Ben Shapiro claims that the conservatives do not do boycotts as a general rule, believe in boycotts. My answer is bullshit to that because, yeah, I agree that there's a lot of left wing sponsored boycotts and mostly liberal boycotts that are kind of somewhat meaningless, virtue signaling and all that. But same thing with the right when they do the boycotts. But according to Ben Shapiro, it's okay when the right engages in boycotts. And I'll give you an example. He claims that they don't do this. Well, in 2003, when the Iraq War took place, the Dixie Chicks were in concert and they made some comments that were critical of the Iraq War and critical of George W. Bush. What did the right do at the time? They were calling for boycotts of the Dixie Chicks. They were also calling for a boycott of anything dealing with France. Now, you want to know what's funny about that? Because there are conservatives today that realize that the Iraq War was a mistake. It was the biggest foreign policy blunder in American history, modern American history. And they realize that today. I mean, as I said before, even Glenn Beck, somebody I had no use for a temporary moment, I had to congratulate him because he acknowledged that the liberals, the left, when he said the liberals, were correct on the Iraq War. I'm glad he did finally acknowledge that. But back then, in 2003, if you were opposed to the Iraq War, what happened to you? You were considered a terrorist lover, un-American, and that sort of thing. And let me tell you, Ben Shapiro, while a lot of conservatives today, including former President Donald Trump, one of the few things he was correct on was his opposition to the Iraq War. And that didn't carry too well in the Republican primary in 2016. I mean, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and the guy from New Jersey, what's his name, Chris Christie, all of those folks, they were on the wrong side defending the George W. Bush war. Jeb Bush couldn't bring himself to. He knew that issue was toxic as hell, and he wanted it to go away. And the only people who were correct about the Iraq War in the Republican primary in 2016 was Donald Trump and Senator Rand Paul. But the thing about it is that Ben Shapiro, to this day, would defend the Iraq War and say it was a good thing. It was not a good thing. Is part of the reason why we're tens of trillions of dollars in debt today. And I just think it was the biggest travesty ever. And I remember boycotting France to the point where former Congressman Walter Jones, the late Walter Jones of North Carolina, 3rd Congressional District, he was the one that came up with a suggestion of calling it French fries, freedom fries in the lunch in the canteen cafeteria up on Capitol Hill, freedom fries. But the thing about it is that Walter Jones is not a neoconservative, was not a neoconservative when he was alive. He was more of a paleoconservative that he more or less described himself. So he ended up regretting his support for the Iraq War. As I said, Ben Shapiro to this day, just like Mark Levin, just like Sean Hannity, just like the late Rush Limbaugh, thought that the war was awesome, which it wasn't. Anyway, I'm going on too much about that Iraq War. But people like Ben Shapiro talking about conservatives don't believe in boycott. What about Little Nas X with his song "Satan's Shoes" a couple of months ago, about a half a year ago, I guess. Just they wanted to go and boycott Little Nas X. And then several years ago, with the Black Lives Matter situation, the police brutality, and Colin Kaepernick kneeling down. I don't know why kneeling is considered disrespectful. It doesn't look disrespectful to me. But they were trying to punish Colin Kaepernick and trying to punish Nike for the wrong reasons because Colin Kaepernick sponsored Nike. There's good reasons to boycott Nike and has nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick. It has more to do with selling an overpriced product made by exploitable labor in the third world. But, these right-wingers, they don't care about that because they don't care about a living wage. As far as they're concerned, a lot of them are really glad that a unionized form of jobs, another one who's taken away and bite the dust. But let me go on. J.C. Penney. Back in the day when homophobia was really in your face about it. I mean, the right wing were wanting to boycott J.C. Penney. Why? Ellen DeGeneres was a spokesperson for J.C. Penney. And think about it is, there's legitimate reasons not to like Ellen DeGeneres. I heard she's an insufferable person as far as her show. I don't even know if it's still in the air. And another reason for me not to like her is her hobnobbing around with a war criminal like George W. Bush, a person who does not think that or did not think that Ellen DeGeneres deserved equality because of her romantic inclination toward the female sex. Basically, the fact that she's a lesbian. Now, I personally don't think George W. Bush gave a shit about the issue one way or the other, but he had to go to appease the right wing base, and that's another reason why I would never have anything positive to say about George W. Bush. The most important part is the Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Now, Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Ben Cohen, Jerry Greenfield, both men are Jewish, are the CEOs of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. And the thing about it is that they made a decision, an executive decision, to go and not sell ice cream in the illegal occupied territories of Israel. And so that got people like Ben Shapiro triggered. And he was talking about the 30-some states that has the anti-BDS laws, the Anti-Boycott Israel Act. He wants to punish Ben and Jerry's ice cream for engaging in what they think is an illegal occupation of the West Bank. And it is an illegal occupation. They need the Israeli settlers need to move out of that area. They need to move back to the pre-1967 borders, and that the West Bank needs to be an independent, sovereign Palestinian state. And needed to be that almost right away when they took over the West Bank. Back, I guess, the 67 war. Was it the 67 war? Yes, the 6-Day War. And the thing about it is that I don't think that Ben and Jerry's are anti-Israel. I do think that they see human right abuse when they see it, and it is, objectively speaking, a human rights abuse. So they need to go back to the pre-1967 borders. And Ben and Jerry's, they're correct on that. And Ben Shapiro is wrong. He wants to use that to clamp down on their free speech rights to engage in this action, more than just a personal boycott. Now, if he wants to go and boycott Ben and Jerry's, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. It's up to you. You're silly, Ben, but go ahead. But to use the cloak of big government, something that Ben Shapiro claims that he is against. He's against big government, but except when big government can achieve the ends he wants, like punishing the political thoughts of people he dislikes, like Ben and Jerry's ice cream. So, and then of course, always screaming about identity politics, and then kind of always insinuating people who questions what Israel would do, and trying to make them out to be anti-Semitic. Well, you can't do that. As I said, Ben Cohen is Jewish, and Jerry Greenfield is Jewish. And he's done that with. He actually called Glenn Greenwald once an anti-Semite, which again, Glenn Greenwald's Jewish, and he was actually doing an impression with Bernie Sanders, clapping his hands, another Jewish person, and mocking Bernie Sanders' manner of speaking, and those are anti-Semitic tropes. Ben, why the fuck are you engaging in anti-Semitic tropes? But anyway, Ben Shapiro is silly, and let me go on. I've got more to comment. Hold tight. Dozy.
I wanted to ask about this. Senator Tom Cotton was basically grilling the human rights guy at Coca-Cola yesterday about China. Watch this.
Senator, we stand up for what is right across the world. We apply the same human rights principles in the United States that we do across the world.
Every single one of you refused to say a single word, by all appearances, that would cost you one bit of market share inside of mainland China.
Thoughts on that, Ben?
I mean, that's obviously true. The big lie with regard to opening China is that it would moderate China if we opened our markets to them and got them to open some of their markets to us. Instead, China very clearly, under Xi Jinping, sees the opening of the markets as a weapon to use against American corporations, converting American corporations into propaganda outfits just to guarantee the market share. You blame corporations for that, but in the end, it's going to have to be governments like the United States government, like the governments of the EU, that unify and isolate China economically. Otherwise, corporations are going to be in a sort of race to the bottom in terms of value, because they frankly can't afford not to do business in China if all of their competitors are.
It reminds me of one of my favorite sayings. If there's a race to the bottom, somebody could win it, indeed. Also wanted to...
Okay. All right. I'm back. Tom Cotton lecturing about human rights abuses in China. I agree. China's not my ideal government either. I don't support any country that is overtly Leninist. I don't even start a fight with them, but I'm not going to support. I'm not going to support any dictatorship, whether it's a dictatorship on the right or even a dictatorship on the left. Now, I don't believe in trying to start a war because I'm a pacifist, but the thing about it is, he goes and criticized Tom Cotton and Ben Shapiro is criticizing Coca-Cola with regard to their dealings with China. I remember in the 1980s when South Africa had the apartheid government, and there was a call for boycotting Coca-Cola, who did business in South Africa. These same right wingers, now Ben Shapiro was a little kid when the sanctions against South Africa was enacted in 1986 at the objection of the Reagan administration. And the thing about it is that there was human rights abuses going on in South Africa. Was a white racist government, minority rule, and they didn't care about the human right abuse in South Africa. And they didn't care about the human. And to this day, you got people from both parties. They don't care about the human right abuses in places like Saudi Arabia. I mean, and the genocide that they're overseeing right now. And I'm not being partisan. People like Bernie Sanders of Vermont and people like Mike Lee of Utah and other people gotten together, a small faction of left-wing Democrats and libertarian-leaning or paleo-conservative-leaning Republicans got together, and they basically made it clear that they do not want the United States to sell arms to Saudi Arabia to oversee a genocide that's going on in Yemen. And the fact that Saudi Arabia, not Iran, but Saudi Arabia is the main cause of terrorism against the West coming from the Middle East. If you want to blame a country, blame Saudi Arabia. Now, I don't want to start a fight or a war with Saudi Arabia, but at the same time, we need to cut diplomatic ties with Saudi Arabia. Iran is not the problem over there. It is Saudi Arabia. They're the ones that are causing the problems, not Iran. But Ben Shapiro will tell you otherwise. Which, as again, Ben Shapiro is a neocon and he loves starting these fights. So, that's Ben Shapiro for you. So I'm going to comment further, and this is the last part of what Ben Shapiro had to say, and I have some words, choice words. Hold tight. Moment. Here we go.
To ask you about this, National Review wrote why they hate Ben Shapiro and us, basically saying if you pay attention to the left's pundit and intellectual class, the people they hate more than anyone, the targets that really raise their blood pressure, are conservatives who are educated, conservatives who are well-spoken or well-read, conservatives who speak the language of the upper middle class. Ben, you have a new book out, The Authoritarian Moment. What are you trying to get across to here that might be driving the left a little crazy?
I mean, the basic point that I make in The Authoritarian Moment is that everybody, right, left, and center, with the exception of the far left, feels ostracized and isolated in modern American society. You say the wrong thing, you end up basically wished into the cornfield. There's going to be blowback to that because the institutions have been taken over. Nearly every major American institution has been taken over by the left. The people on the left don't really like when you notice this. They would prefer that we all focus in on members of the authoritarian right who represent a pretty small contingent. They don't like it when you actually take note of the fact that serious institutions with serious power to wield against Americans are using that power to crack down on political dissent, which is why it's incumbent on us to notice it and to fight back against it.
Maybe a quick thought from you about the new, apparently the mask mandates could be coming back.
Insane. I mean, the CDC is not basing this on any level of science. According to the CDC's own statistics, 161 million Americans have been vaccinated. We've had about 6,000 breakthrough cases resulting in hospitalization, which means that your chance of being hospitalized thus far in the United States, if you're vaccinated, your chance of being hospitalized about 1 in 27,223. And on the basis of this, we are now asking people who are vaccinated to mask up to protect everybody else who already has had the chance to get vaccinated. Right. And by the way, I'm not seeing the unvaccinated screaming for the vaccinated to mask up. I'm seeing vaccinated members of the CDC screaming for the vaccinated to mask up.
Ben Shapiro, good luck with the book. We loved having you. I hope you come back. Thank you.
Thanks so
much. Two companies taking heat after bowing to the left.
La-di-da, la-di-da. I'm back. Okay, yeah. Now, as far as quote-unquote hating Ben Shapiro, I mean, obviously, I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro, but no, I don't. And now I've said, like I have said sometimes, I hate Marjorie Taylor Greene. I hate George W. Bush. I hate this politician. I hate that politician. Well, I mean, I really don't hate anybody, but I really despise certain politicians and certain people. And while I don't hate Ben Shapiro, I do not wish him harm. Um, the fact is, he's a neocon. Now, he hasn't directly killed anybody. Now, John Bolton and then Dick Cheney, George W. Bush, all those folks, they've killed people. But yeah, no, I mean, he hasn't himself. He just support killing people. He's a partisan hack. Ben Shapiro is always, the Republicans are always good, and the Democrats are not just wrong or misguided. The Democrats are evil. Now, I got a lot of complaints about Democrats, to tell you the truth. I think that the political party institutionally is garbage, but then but even though I acknowledge that the Democratic Party, for the most part, is garbage, I wouldn't exactly go around bragging about being a Republican. The Republicans are still 10 times worse than the Democrats, hands down, any day. And he's a corporatist. Every corporately managed trade deal, anything that's anti-worker, anything that's anti-union, anti-public services for the people, and anything that's corporate welfare, he takes the usual Heritage Foundation movement conservative um, line when it comes to this sort of thing. And of course, in the last few years, his crusade against socialism, which brings me back to Israel, because Ben Shapiro loves what sucks about Israel, the human right abuse against the Palestinians. He loves that aspect of Israel. He loved people like the former Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, a war criminal as well. But when it comes to things like what's good about Israel, like they have socialized medicine, and they have some of the trappings that exist in some of the Western European democracies, some of the socialism and some of the personal freedoms and civil liberties in domestic societies, the secular life. He hates that part because he would like to see the country be a theocratic state. Like he would like to see. He would like to see a Zionist Sharia within the state of Israel itself. And so that makes him just as bad as people who favor Sharia law in Saudi Arabia or the mullahs in Iran or what have you. He's no better. And so, and it's not because he's Jewish. It's because Ben Shapiro is an authoritarian, and you can find authoritarianism within all religions. It doesn't matter. All religions has their authoritarians. All religions have their good people too. And unfortunately, Ben Shapiro is not a good person. As far he favors bad things, and he's a rotten person. So I just hope that he'll one day realize how wrong he is on politics. As far as the mask is concerned, I'm so tired of people politicizing it. Just do what is right, and if it means masking up to isolate this Delta variant, it needs to be done. And anybody who's not getting their vaccines, they're doing a disservice not only to society, they're doing a disservice to themselves. Although I don't think that people should be forced to be vaccinated, but anyway, yeah. But this is Ben Shapiro for you. He's silly. He's just an absolute bad joke. Actually, he's a sad joke. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, that's fine. Comment anyway. Feel free to share the content on this channel. And let's see. Yeah, content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we're the muckrakers of our time. And feel free to hit the notification bell and subscription button so you're kept up to date with hard-hitting social democratic commentary by yours truly. I am American Social Democracy. Class struggle now. And hello to Viva Lieta Godfrey. And I'm sorry, I work graveyard shift, and sorry if I mispronounced the name, but hello, great seeing you. Take care, everyone. Bye.